In this video, we're gonna learn how to spawn some enemies. So we're gonna make some adjustments to our enemies and update the code a little bit. We're also going to have it spawning on its own every couple of seconds. We're also going to have it so that when the player dies, the spawn manager then stops spawning the enemies. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain basically how a coroutine works. You should also be able to start a coroutine, write a coroutine, and briefly discuss what a while loop does. Let's jump right in. Welcome to video 5. In the last video, we wrote our enemy script so that it flew off the bottom of the screen and then teleported back to the top. That's a great way to recycle objects when we're manually dragging enemies into the scene for testing combat. However, today we're building an automated spawn manager that will constantly instantiate new enemies. If we have a manager creating new enemies and our old enemies are recycling themselves forever, we'll quickly flood the screen and crash the game, and that's not what we want. So we need to refactor, or rather update, our enemy code first. So let's start out by opening our enemy script. Inside of our enemy script, once this finishes loading, we're going to look inside of our update method. Oops, I got drug off for some reason, so let's fix that. There we go. And inside of our update method, this if statement right here, we're actually going to delete these two lines and we're going to replace it with destroy. Whoops. Try this again. Destroy this dot game object. There we go. And go ahead and press save. So now when it runs this if check statement, then and if it gets to y is less than minus 5f, then it's going to destroy the enemy ship. Alright, now let's build our spawn manager. So going back into Unity, we're going to go ahead and drag our orange enemy into our prefabs folder, making that a prefab. Let's delete that from our hierarchy. Right click into the hierarchy. We're going to go to create empty and go ahead and name this spawn manager with a capital S and a capital M. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to make sure that this is zeroed out in its positions. That way it is found in the center of our camera area. It's going to be invisible because it's an empty game object, so we don't have to worry about that so much. Now, go to our scripts folder. We're going to right click in there. We're going to go to create. We're going to choose mono behavior script. And we're going to name this spawn manager. Alright, now let's give that a chance to compile. Go ahead and just click on your spawn manager, drag that into it, and then we can open that up. Alright, so with our spawn manager open, we need to come up here to the top. We need to add a new collection, and there, so we're going to type in using system.collection. We need this because we're going to be using going into something called coroutines, and in order to be able to use those, we need this collections in there to allow us to handle these time-based events. So as always, we're going to need to declare some variables in here, so let's copy those in real quick. Now to break these down, we have our placeholder for our area for our enemy prefab, where that's going to go. We have the rate at which the spawn manager over here in our hierarchy is going to start spawning objects, and then we have our this boolean called stop spawning is currently set to false. We're going to use this at the end. That way if the player dies, we can trigger it, make it trigger to true, and it stops it. The spawn manager from creating enemies. So go ahead and press save, and you can start to see, if we go back to Unity, you'll see that start to compile, and then those things show up. Maybe. There we go. Alright, so if you wanted to, you can go ahead and jump ahead and drop that prefab in there so it's already there. Go ahead and don't forget to press save and go back to your script. We're going to need the start function or start method, so we leave that, but we don't need the update. Alright, so with our update deleted, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy in that code here. And so this is called an IEnumerator, and it's basically the definition for our coroutine. What it's going to say is after 2 seconds, go ahead and start spawning the enemies. And so while it starts spawning the enemies, it's going to look for this loop right here. And this loop is going to continue to run as long as stop spawning is equal to false. What's going to happen is it's going to pick a random X position between -f and -8 and +8. And it's going to pass that X position into a new vector 3, with the X being the random X that's created, and then the Y being 7F, and of course our Z being 0. Once it passes that new vector 3 position, it's going to instantiate an enemy prefab, our orange enemy, at this new spawn position, and it's going to use the enemy's transform and rotation. That way it doesn't mess up anything we've done with the rotation of the enemy or changing this code like we did in the last video to vector3.up. Once it spawns that first enemy, then it's going to pause the loop for our spawn rate, which is 2 seconds, and then it's going to repeat the process. So every 2 seconds this is supposed to spawn an enemy. So let's go ahead and save, and we'll test that out once it finishes compiling. No, we won't, because we forgot to, in our start menu, to start our coroutine. And so we got to tell it in the start method to start the coroutine, and that coroutine, see here, it's going to look for it. It's going to say spawn enemy routine, and it'll put that in there for us. Press Control S, and now let's go back and press play. We're moving, and look at that, every 2 seconds there's an enemy that is spawning at a different position. So all that's working nice and good. So next, let's tell it when to stop, because right now if the player dies, it's gonna keep spawning, and we need to tell it when to stop spawning enemies. So to start with, what we're going to do is go back to our code, and inside of our spawn manager we're going to create a new method, and it's going to be called public void. It's small, so I'll type it in on player death. And what's going to happen is it's going to be very simple. We're going to say stop spawning is equal to true. So when the player dies, this should be called, and it's going to set stop spawning to true. So now we need to add some references to our player controller. So up here at the top in our player controller, we're going to add a reference to it. We're going to say probably make it private, if I could spell private. And we're going to say spawn manager, because we're going to be looking for the spawn manager script, and we're just going to call that spawn manager and make things easy on us. Alright, and inside of our start menu we're going to pass spawn manager dot game object. What just happened here? I'm not sure what happened there. That was really weird. Alright, so we're going to pass spawn manager is equal to GameObject.Find. It's going to look for the object called spawn manager, and it's going to get the component in this called spawn manager, which is going to be our script, right? So from there, let's scroll down to our damage script over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add another if statement inside of this one already. So we're going to say if, actually we'll just copy it, it'll be easier. We're going to tell the spawn manager to stop just by doing that. I try not to type as much because it takes up a lot of time, and I'd rather just explain things to it, so to y'all. So now what we've done when we updated this damage inside the player controller is we added a second if check statement. So if the player lives are less than 1, it's going to check to see if the spawn manager is not equal to, that's what this exclamation and equal sign next to each other means, not equal to null, meaning if the spawn manager is actually there, then we're going to call the spawn manager script and look for the onPlayer death method, which will then come over here, look for this onPlayer death method, and if it finds it, which it will, it's going to say, it's going to switch stop spawning to true. And if all that works out the way it's supposed to, then what should happen is when I die after I press play, the spawn manager should stop spawning. So I got that last one off right as I hit it, so that doesn't count. But as you can see, it is no longer spawning, which is exactly what we want. So everything is working out good, and so make sure you save your scene, and I will see you in the next video where we start to tackle our UI canvas. Until then, keep learning, keep building, and I'll see you in the next video.